In today's video, I share with you Darktide, the miniatures game from Games Workshop. But before we get into today's video, I want to give a quick shout out to all of my lovely Patreon supporters. I love you guys so much. You make this channel possible and what it is. So thank you so much to all of my Patreon supporters. And I want to announce this past month's GGGGs. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this past month of June of 2024, Bruise Games Rides is receiving the printed and painted Ramshackle and Ruin building by 3D Egos. Walker S is receiving the Metromorph cardboard terrain. Andrew S is receiving a pledge for the District 12 Project M Kickstarter campaign. And Stephen P is receiving the $100 going towards the Port Royal Kickstarter campaign. Go ahead and use the link below to go to my Patreon page where you can find out more about this month's GGGGs. And one of them is going to be the spell tracker that is currently one of the Kickstarters. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a future video. So one of my Patreon supporters did tell me about this game Darktide during one of our Discord video hangouts. And I didn't know really anything about it until he told me, and had no intention of actually purchasing this game because it is pricey at $100. But when he told me that it uses all of the same miniatures as many of the ones that is found in Blackstone Fortress, I went ahead and purchased it because I painted up, as you can see here, all of the minis from Blackstone Fortress, as well as the Painter Starter Pack for the Poxwalkers. I happen to have already had those and painted them up as well. Now I know many of you complained that you were wishing that there were new sculpts in this box, but I am glad that they used old sculpts because that means I don't have to paint any of them. Even though there are some of the heroes that I don't have because they came from another kit, I decided to actually proxy them. So I do have this flamer from Blackstone Fortress. That definitely is one of the characters, but the other three I didn't have. But I already have models that I can proxy from my Across the Realms pinup guards that I have been working on an entire army, and so I have proxy models that I'm going to use for this game. So instead of the really derpy Ogren that Games Workshop should have updated, but I think it's 20 years old, that model looks terrible. Across the Realms actually has a lot of Ogren models, female models, so Across the Realm is known for making female versions of many of the 40K universe. Go ahead and check out my video where I talk about my pinup guard army. So not only the Ogren, but also the Psyker, the Zealot, and the Veteran. I have corresponding models that fit super well with all four of those. And that makes it that I can play this game instantaneously without having to paint up more additional miniatures. Now there are a couple of distinct miniatures that doesn't come in Blackstone Fortress. In particular, there's a Mobian Gunner that is a grenade launcher. I don't have that model, as well as the Sharpshooter, the Commsman. I do have a model that can proxy in as the Chieftain. So with those models, I might eventually go ahead and assemble those and paint those specifically. But in the meantime, what I did was I printed out this STL file where it attaches a number to the base. Additionally, I do have a magnet underneath so that I can carry all of these without them scratching up the paint. So I'm intending on traveling with this box set in order to play it during vacation, and that's why I ended up purchasing this. And because most of them are actually numbered on the activation cards, I can just find the number very easily by using these bases and activate them accordingly so that it doesn't have to be a 100% match of what the model is on these cards. I went ahead because I do have sleeves for these cards because I only sleeve the cards that I shuffle a lot, and the activation deck you're going to be shuffling multiple times. I actually didn't bother shuffling any of the equipment cards or special abilities cards because you don't shuffle those. But because I do have sleeves on them, I was able to put a sticker with a number and correspond it with the additional 5 special characters from the Mobian troops. And then even though I do have all of the corresponding models with the Poxwalkers, I think it takes a little while to identify them. So I went ahead and printed out more of the bases with the numbers on those additionally, just to make it a lot easier to identify which model is which whenever I pull these activation cards. Also, Colin did create this 3D printable terrain. He is one of my Patreon supporters, but also I did a previous video about his Starcrawler campaign, which is a 3D terrain set for Zombicide Invader. If you haven't seen that video, go ahead and check it out here. But these files are on sale at 3D Cults, where you can purchase them for a little over $10. And you're going to get 4 different pillar types. You get one of these barriers. And just a quick note, this is the original height, but I did shorten it a little bit, just because I think it's unnecessarily tall, and I don't like having unnecessary height on these because it just makes it more burdensome to move things around on the board. Also, it stores in the original box a little bit easier when it's shorter. I'll provide these shortened files to Colin, but he did mention that he is going to come out with a shortened version himself as well. And then I 3D printed out this card holder. I think this is from another game, but this just makes it so that I can hold all the cards inside of the box. These numbered bases, that file is available. Use the link below to go to the files that I uploaded on printables, and you can get that for free. I created it so that you can do multi-height colored printing, so that all of the numbers, you can set your machines, if you have Prusa Slicer, to stop at that point. Switch it to a different color so that you can see the numbers a lot easier, so that you don't have to bother painting that number in. You can still do that, paint it in, but I find it just easier to swap out the colors and do different colored layer heights. Before I review the game and give my recommendations, go ahead and check out this video, because I'm not doing a playthrough of the game, because this video does an excellent job talking about the rules and actually showing you a playthrough. So rather than recreating that, just check out this video if you want to get a sense of how the game plays. But overall, this game is called Kill Team Lite. And if you already play Kill Team or have Kill Team, this is probably not for you, because it's a simplified version of the full experience and is actually meant to be a gateway into playing full Kill Team. Now, the only reason why you might still pick up this game is maybe you do want a simplified rule set from the original Kill Team, but this is pure co-op. It's more of a dungeon crawler, a campaign that you go through different scenarios that increasingly escalates. That's the primary reason why I bought it. I'm going to be taking it, as I mentioned before, on vacation with me, where I'm going to be with family members who don't play really intense, rules-heavy tabletop skirmishers, but I think they will be more interested in having a co-op where we're working together towards not a very long campaign. So you're not committed to this huge, long, 20-plus scenario thing. There's 6 scenarios in all. Each scenario has a couple of rounds in it, which take about half an hour each. So it is simpler and quicker to get through. But actually has enough complexity that it isn't super dumbed down where it's boring. Some games are so dumbed down that I don't find any enjoyment in them at all. For example, Hero Quest is too simple. And so I don't really like playing that game, even though I have a lot of nostalgia for that. Darktide, on the other hand, maintains enough complexity for me that I actually like it. It keeps me engaged. You have a lot of different upgrade options for each one of your heroes, so that creates some variety, also some interest. As you're progressing along in the campaign, you're rewarded with more equipment. So there's enough moving parts to it and variability to it to keep me invested and interested, but not so complicated that a non-tabletop wargamer won't be overwhelmed. And because it's co-op, we can work through each of our turns together and strategize together, so that they're not stuck trying to figure out a super complicated system, or even in drafting together the team. You only have 4 choices, and even though you can equip it with special abilities and equipment, it isn't so overwhelming that you don't know what to do. And that's one of the downfalls that I feel like with a lot of Games Workshop games, is that people just get stuck, even at the army building phase, where there are so many options, you don't even know how to get into it. But this game is, the level entry is really friendly for non-tabletop wargamers, and I think this is just the right level that's going to hit with some of my family members as we play. Now, a huge downside, I think, to this game is this is $100, and I think that is overpriced for a box game like this. A lot of Games Workshop games that were sold through Barnes & Noble here in the United States, for example, Blitz Bowl here, this game and a lot of the Barnes & Noble games were $50, about half the price of this. And on top of that, look how sturdy this box is. And you're getting a lot of miniatures for $50 to play a Blitz Bowl, which I really prefer over the regular Blood Bowl because Blood Bowl is too complicated for me. So this is a really fun game, really worth the $50. I will say that this game is actually not worth $100. It really should be more about the $50 or $60 range. I know that you're getting 20 miniatures, but still $100 is pretty steep for a game like this, especially using old sculpts. And the box is super flimsy. I mean, this is like one of the boxes that you get for Combat Patrol. So it's not sturdy at all. I wish the box was more like this, where I could travel around with it, knowing that it's going to protect the components. So they really cheaped out on this game. And overall, unless you have a very specific use case like I do, to play this game with my family, a simplified version where I know they will never play any of my regular, more complicated tabletop war games, not even one-page rules, this is a great entry point into having a co-op game just like this. But this is a very specific use case for me, and still at $100, I think it's overpriced. So unless you have a specific use case like I do or intention to play this, or maybe this would be a good entry point for kids, you know, someone around 10 or 11 years old. If you have kids a little bit older, this might be a fun game to do with them. But if you don't have that use case, it's just overpriced. And I know that a lot of Games Workshop stuff is overpriced and even increasing in price now, which is why I'm primarily getting into 3D printing my miniatures. But it actually is not getting the Gaming Geek stamp of approval, and I would suggest you pursue some other games that are a better deal. Those are my thoughts, but go ahead and make a comment below. If you are a tabletop wargamer and you have purchased Darktide, do you agree with my opinion? Do you think that it's overpriced, or that this is for a specific use case? Even though it does use some of the Kill Team rules, it is easier than playing Kill Team because it doesn't have quite as many rules as Kill Team does. And I think it makes a big difference that you are playing co-op. All of the enemies have AI that is driving their actions. So very different from the competitive Kill Team, regular Kill Team that is played. But yeah, just make a comment below what your thoughts are about whether or not this game is worth it. I do think it's fun, but very, very different. Almost doesn't fit in the same category as Kill Team, which again, the key thing about that is you're playing head to head, and making it co-op just gives the feel, even though some of the engine of gameplay is similar to Kill Team, it really feels very, very different than any head-to-head competitive tabletop skirmisher. If you are interested in picking it up, it is available on Amazon. Go ahead and use my affiliate link below. That gives me a little bit of a kickback without this costing more for you. And use the link below to go to my Patreon page where you can check out what the gratitude gifts are for this month. Happy gaming! We'll see you next time.